I know by now you probably have a fair idea of how hybrids work, given that technology's been around for around 2 decades at this point. But this one, the Nissan Qashqai Ti e-Power, might just test that knowledge a little bit, because it's a hybrid, yes, just not as you know them. See, this one uses the electric motor to power the wheels, only using its petrol engine to charge the battery or to feed power to the electric motor. And I know that sounds a little bit confusing, but don't worry, I have just spent 3 months behind the wheel of this one to figure it all out, and I promise by the end of this video you'll fully understand it too. Besides, if you're tossing up between an e-Power or a more conventional hybrid like something from Toyota, then you're going to want to stick around to the very end. Okay, deep breath, because it turns out that saving money at the petrol pump actually doesn't come cheap. While the regular petrol-powered Qashqai Ti is just over 51 grand drive away, fitting the e-Power tech ups the on-road cost to a sizable $55,955 on the road. That said, flagship small SUVs just aren't that cheap anymore, even the non-electrified ones. The top spec Mazda CX-30, the Estina, is around 49k on the road in New South Wales. The Kia Seltos GT line is 48k on the road, and the most expensive Corolla Cross Hybrid, the Atmos, is 51k drive away. And you can spec up a petrol-powered Hyundai Kona to an eye-watering 53k on the road too. We're in a brave new world of big price tags on small SUVs, I'm afraid, and the Qashqai is no exception. This flagship Ti trim gets the electrified tech, of course, but it also gets a long list of goodies like 19-inch alloys, LED lighting, a huge glass roof, adaptive headlights, and an auto-opening boot. Inside, there's quilted leather seats that are heated up front and which include a massage function. There's wireless phone charging, dual zone climate, and a huge 12.3-inch center screen with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Not enough tech? Well, there's also a big digital dashboard as well as a huge 10.8-inch head-up display. I've got to say, I reckon the Nissan Qashqai is pretty damn fetching, especially this blue and black number, which is magnetic blue with a pearl black roof, if you're wondering. But elsewhere though, there's the kind of swept back styling, this long, thin, elegant lighting, and the kind of not too fussy body styling, all combined to, I think, make it Nissan's best looking car. But there's some attention to detail here that I really love as well. For example, the Qashqai stamped into the body here, but also these super fine, super crisp body lines. All creates a kind of elegant and pretty premium feeling small SUV. Now the cabin probably isn't quite as impressive as the exterior, but there are still some niceties in here I really like, namely these thick quilted leather seats, this lovely padding on the dash, the big glass roof, and this huge screen right in front of me, which is super clear and super easy to use. There are a couple of quirks though, and some of it might be down to my driving style. One of them is this little mode selector here that allows you to go from sport to normal to eco mode. And just because of the way I rest my hand when I'm driving, I find myself sort of accidentally selecting modes with the palm of my hand, which you might not even notice, except eco tends to suck the life right out of the accelerator pedal, so you do notice it when you accidentally engage it. Again, that might just be me though. And one other thing, at this price point, I'd like to see hard plastics completely banished, but there are still plenty of them lurking around the place. Now, first things first, the Qashqai is a small SUV and it can sometimes feel that way from the back seat. Not at the moment, where I'm sitting behind my own 175cm driving position. As you can see, I've got enough knee room and there's enough headroom too. But if you are riding behind taller passengers up front, things can start to feel a little more cramped back here. Plus, the use of hard plastics is a bit more liberal in the back seat than it is up front. Now elsewhere though, there are twin USB points for your phone connections as well as air vents, and lots of light comes through this beautiful glass roof, and there is a sunshade for those blistering summer days as well. Now at the back there is a smallish boot area, but I've got to say I have pulled off an IKEA trip and a Bunnings trip in this over the past 3 months, and while it did require me to fully lower these back seats and play a little bit of flat pack Tetris, it can be used to carry big things at a pinch. So this Qashqai Ti e-Power blends a petrol engine, in this case a turbocharged 1.5 litre unit, with an electric motor and a small 2.1 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery to produce a total 140 kilowatts and 330 newton meters. So far, so familiar, but where the e-Power differs from conventional hybrids, the type used in Toyota's mega popular RAV4 Hybrid or Corolla Cross Hybrid, is the way it delivers that power. See, in the Nissan, the petrol engine is only used to recharge the battery or to deliver grunt to the electric motor. It's the electric motor, and only the electric motor, that drives the wheels, meaning it behaves more like a true EV. Smooth, constant acceleration without overly revving or a wonky gearbox. So a hybrid then, just not as we know them. Nissan says this electrified wizardry will deliver fuel use of 5.2 litres per 100 kilometres on the combined cycle. That's not as good as the claimed fuel figure Toyota says you'll see in the Corolla Cross Hybrid, by the way, with the Japanese giant promising a combined 4.4 litres per 100 kilometre figure. On longer trips, I'm seeing more like 5.7 litres per 100 kilometres, and if I'm mostly in the city, it's more like 7 litres per 100 kilometres. All in all, the Qashqai I've got has averaged around 6.5 litres over the past 3 months. Not bad, but not quite 5.2 litres either. Okay, so if you remember I said this drives like an EV, this is what I mean. Just this kind of smooth, quiet acceleration and that kind of accelerator feel that will be instantly familiar if you've ever driven an EV. There's no overly revving engine, there's no gearbox to get in the way, it's mostly smooth and quiet. What is unique about this one though, is that there is a petrol engine on board. Obviously that's what's delivering power to the battery and at times to the electric motor. And so it does cut in sometimes under heavy acceleration, and sometimes it just cuts in of its own volition when it feels like things need a top up. And that takes a little bit of getting used to as well, because it feels kind of weird to have an engine that's moving out of sync with your right foot. That's so different to what we've been accustomed to driving ICE engines over the years, but I promise you do kind of get used to it. The only problem is when it is operating, like when you put your foot down and the petrol engine needs to deliver more power to the electric motors, you can hear it. It is kind of a bit invasive, and that is the kind of drawback of it not being a true EV. There's still that ICE rumble in the background. But honestly, when you're driving around just drawing power from the electric motor or the battery and that engine's nowhere to be seen, it really is a lovely drive experience. It's smooth, it's easy, it's effortless, and it's very, very quick to understand. There's no special buttons to push or anything else. You just get in, put it in drive and go. But I must say it's nowhere near as perky as EVs I've driven in the past. When you put your foot down, the acceleration just isn't all that rapid, especially from a standing start. So you do kind of need to ease into it a little bit. But if I'm honest, that kind of feels like it suits the nature of the car a little bit. This is, above all else, an easy car to drive, an easy car to understand, and that kind of not pin you back in the seat acceleration, I guess, is all just a part of it. So as you can probably hear now, when that petrol engine's not involved, and I know we're on some dodgy road surfaces now, so you might be hearing some tyre noise, it really is a quiet, calming, comfortable drive experience. The suspension and the steering are tuned really nicely as well. So there are some drive modes for you to cycle through as well. Sport kind of ups the excitement ever so slightly, but it also seems to bring the petrol engine into play a little more quickly as well and kind of negates that whole EV-like drive experience. Normal is where I've had it 99.9% of the time I've had the car. Occasionally, and I mean occasionally, I've had it in eco, but I find that sucks what little acceleration there is out of the experience so rapidly that I immediately put it back into normal. But if you are really focused on being frugal, if you really want to save the most amount of fuel you can, eco is there for you. Just don't expect to enjoy the drive experience all that much. And all of that, I guess, is what separates this from conventional hybrids. There are some hybrid vehicles you drive that just feel a little bit harsh. You can hear the engine, you can hear the gearbox. It doesn't feel like a silky smooth experience, although granted, they are mostly more efficient than this one. But this one kind of flips that tail a little bit. It's not as efficient as some of those hybrids, at least not on paper. But in my opinion, the drive experience is far superior. I love that EV-like drive experience without ever having to plug in. And when that petrol engine is not in use, you can really forget it's there at all. This gets the best of the Nissan Intelligent Mobility safety stuff, which means all of your AEBs, lane departure warnings and cross-traffic alerts are present and accounted for. But there are two interesting things here, one of which is Nissan's ProPilot, which essentially allows for mindless motorway driving with the Qashqai taking care of the acceleration and lane centering. And there's another button just under the aircon controls, which is a self-parking system, but I've got to say it's massively cumbersome and almost impossible to figure out, and honestly, you're probably better off parking yourself. This Qashqai Ti e-Power comes with Nissan's 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty with roadside assistance, and you'll be visiting the service centre every 12 months or 10,000 Ks. And thanks to cap price servicing, we know your first 5 years of ownership will cost you $2,230, but that number drops to $2,007 should you prepay for the servicing package when you buy your car. The Qashqai Ti e-Power isn't as zippy as a conventional EV, and nor is it as fuel efficient as a traditional hybrid. But know this, it is a better, smoother, quieter drive than a conventional hybrid, plus you never need to plug it in. Now, to read all of my long-term reports on the Qashqai TI e-Power and reviews on thousands of other cars, check out carsguide.com.au.